Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO guide video. And today we're gonna go over 10 things that you can do to improve your play in WARNO. Those are mostly focused on multiplayer, but they all work for single player as well, and focused around the skirmish game mode. And they are supposed to improve your game after you finish the tutorials, played a couple of skirmishes, but for you veteran players, a couple might be interesting as well. So let's start with the first one. And the first one is move your artillery off the reinforcement roads. As, for example, we right here have a Nona group on the main road. And this is our reinforcement road. And if we now shoot from here, and then the enemy come in with the counter battery, even if you move them after shooting and, for example, move them further to move position after they shot, the enemy, if they use counter battery, might hit other units that come by on the reinforcement road by accident and kill those off. And that is especially important in team games. In 10v10 games, you never want to be the one that lets the teammates lose units because you were the one firing from the main road that then got counter batteried. Especially as they won't expect it. So this is tip number one here. Move your artillery off to a side road, like for example, over here, or onto a field. In forest, you don't want to have them either because they move slower there, and they can't. That means the counter battery has more time getting on top of them. But yeah, side roads or open fields is where you want to have your artillery, and then move after shooting to another field or another side road. Let's move on to tip number two. And tip number two has to do with artillery and airplanes as well, and that is put them into control hotkey groups, like with control 1 or control +2, and then you have them on the 1 or 2 hotkey. As, for example, with planes, you often need to call in your interceptors or your strike aircraft at moments where it's about every second. Like, the enemy airplanes won't be out there for long, the enemy unit that is visible won't be out there for long, so you don't want to go down here and have the click. You want to be quick and click them out. Like, I have them on control hotkey group 3 there, press 3, call them out, they come out. Same goes with artillery. You don't want to go zoom back all the way in here, do this, go back. You want to go with one hotkey group, go. Like when you're fighting up here, switch back, all these back, go back, switch target. That is how you want to do it with artillery. Super important. It is unfortunate that Legion doesn't have any indicator like other RTS have, but the control groups work just like in StarCraft, Age of Empires, or Co. So highly recommend using them here for these units. Let's move on to tip number 3, which has to do with control groups as well. And that tip is about Radar AA. As Radar AA is also a unit where you need to react quickly and where you need to react quickly to enemy seed planes coming in, trying to shoot you. And you don't want to click them each individually, turn off the radar weapon, and then move on to the next one. So what you want to do with these is also have them in the control group, have a quickly accessible turning off weapon and turning on weapon hotkey, and then when you need to go and you are in the front line, just click the hotkey, turn off the weapon. You see they turned off, and then once the enemy seaplane went back to base or is on the curve, you can turn it back on again. Sometimes you need to individually micro them at this point because some are still in front of the seaplane, some are behind it already. But that is then additional afterwards. For the quick reaction at the beginning, you want to do it like this. So that is tip number 3. Let's move on to the fourth one. And that tip has to do with the rules of engagement that use, or engagement rules as they are called in here, as you can see in the bottom. As you sometimes want to change them up, like generic ones you set up in the settings, but there are scenarios where you really want to use this. For example, the trucks that can be sold, usually most of them you want to have on auto sold on, but for transports for artillery you often want to change them to off so that you can reload your artillery. And same goes for trucks that come with a leader inside. You don't want to have that leader stranded in the middle of nowhere after capturing the first point. So for those, you even want to turn it off at the beginning of the game often. And then for others, you want to change it on the fly. A couple of other important ones are the all units, no transports, or only transports with passengers, missile engagement rules for ATGM units, if you want to have them preserve their ammunition and only go for important units. And then the other one is the cover, hold position, or nothing thing, because sometimes you don't want your infantry to go into cover, because they might sit behind the building, and you don't want them to get into that building, because once they're in the building, they will be spotted from the other side. So then you change this here to nothing, and let them sit behind the building. Those are the most important settings there. The others you usually leave as is, but changing them up quickly can give you an advantage in some situations, so keep in mind that these exist. Let's move on to tip number 5. And this one is about the buying menu and how you want to use that. As, for example, with tanks and all units with weapons, they usually come in with a hunt order, and transports come usually with a fast move order or hunt order as well, if you buy them like that. But if you click on the unit and then click unload on position key, for me that is Z, and then buy the unit onto the battlefield, they come immediately with the unload on position order, and that is super helpful if you want to use your infantry immediately on the battlefield, and you don't you bring them in on a position on the battlefield where you maybe not looking, maybe your fight is over here, and then your units sit here in transport, might get shot, might get killed in transport because you forgot about them. And if you use it like this, they will come in, will unload, and you don't have to worry about that anymore. You don't have to spend extra time waiting for them to be on the battlefield and then do that order. So this is pretty important. It works with other orders as well. You can, for example, fast order if you don't want to have hunt. If you say, for example, it's late in the game, it's your last chance for the leaders to get through, you don't want them to stop for anything, just buy them with a fast order. That works as well. So yeah, pretty helpful little thing, especially when you have unload on position, but can come in handy with some other movement commands as well. So let's move on to the next one. And this one is a bit more theoretical, but it is about a really important one that I think even on top level is done quite often quite wrong, and in team games even more so, and that is the usage of aircraft in the late game. Early game, you often use planes to take out single targets and then they go back to base, as the enemy AA network still has to build up. And then in the late game, people don't change their behavior in that regard and still use planes as a one usage delete button, but that doesn't work, and it often ends in them wasting their single planes completely inefficiently because they fall in their single plane, wait for it to come out, wait for it to arrive, and then if they see another unit, they bring another plane in there, and then the first one gets shut down, then the second one comes in and gets shut down as well. And what you want to do instead is come in with a strike package, because this way you can overwhelm enemy air defenses all at once, and they can't do much against you, so that all your planes arrive over the enemy at a similar time, because this way they can only shoot down 1 or 2 planes maybe, and the rest of your planes still will get through with the attack, especially important in team games. If you're on voice comm with friends, coordinate that. I think, for example, in my last couple of 2v2 tournaments games, that helped out a lot, that we coordinated that and brought in planes at the same time, because that means, especially their slow firing long range missiles, they only get 1 or 2 missiles out on 5 planes instead of getting 5 missiles out of 5 planes because they came in piecemeal. And it is a big game changer in how efficient your air forces will be in the late game. You really want to overwhelm enemy air units, AA units, just by sheer numbers, and then wait for repairs. Don't fall in your units immediately after they finish repairs. Wait until a couple of them are ready again, then come in as a new wave again. And even if your individual kills aren't quite as high as they could be if you get every individual kill otherwise, the KD will still be in your favor. So yeah, this is the one for airplanes. Let's move on to another one that has to do with AA and artillery. And that one is about using the pings. As the attack beacon and so on here, they are on hotkey F1, F2, F3. And what you want to do with them is use them whenever you see enemy AA or artillery fire and you don't have something to strike it immediately. Just ping on that position to remember where they were so that you can maybe strike them later with artillery, with bombers. That's something that we see quite often on top level play. On lower level play, it's not used as much. Obviously, in 10v10, you don't want to be the one that spams ping non-stop in the game. But even there, you can do 1 or 2 pings every 2 or 3 minutes. No problems. People won't get angry if you ping them on enemy AA and artillery positions. So yeah, consider doing that to keep you reminded about the exact position. Because if you see artillery firing there and then you come back like after being for 10, 15, 20 seconds over here and then you want to use artillery here and you were like, was it in this corner? Was it in this corner? I'm actually not sure anymore. You fire on this corner with your artillery and everything just completely whiffs because you shot at the wrong target. So yeah, get the ping on there and then use it when you're ready. The pings stay for quite a while. So that is the next one. Let's move on to number 8, which is a pretty important one as well. So yeah, let's go into helicopters. And this one has to do with the change altitude, which is a really important feature that doesn't have a hotkey. So give it a hotkey, go into controls and give it a hotkey that you want, as change altitude is actually a pretty important one. Land is another one that you should set. Mine just got resetted, so yeah, those 2 hotkeys you should have set so that you can, in the situation that the enemy tries to run you down with jets, change altitude of your helicopters and hide behind the tree line so that the enemy attack jets lose line of sight and can't just shoot you down with missiles, or outright land so that your units can't be shot by air-to-air missiles anymore. They might still strafe you down, but they will do a lot less damage than they could do with missiles. So those 2 are real important, especially in the beginning of a game when you have a helicopter out, the enemy comes along with a jet that you see maybe from a couple miles away. You want to click that button. Often the enemy still gets the first half of their strafe on you, but then just is losing line of sight right at the moment where they could be lethal, and your helicopter will survive. Might still take damage, but will get out living, and that is obviously super important because helicopters are units that cost quite a bit and also are especially low availability, so losing one of them early on is a big hit to your units and your available combined arms that you can bring to the battlefield. So let's move on to tip number 9. And this one has to do with planes once more, and it is about how you get planes to turn in the direction you want after losing their payload. And that has to do with shift clicking them after the attack order that you gave them to the side you want to have them go. Like, let's say, for example, you know enemy AA is over here, then you want to shift click them to the other side so that they can do the attack run and then move away to the side you wanted to them to avoid as much AA as possible, and you don't want to have them randomly turn. If they get stressed out, they might still do the other turn, which can be frustrating, but usually you want to have this queued up. You can even queue it up with an evacuation order at the end if you shift click the evacuation button so that they do an attack run, then fly to that direction, then do an evacuation and get out of the battlefield. We'll see. There we go. MiG-29 now returns back home after taking the right turn that we wanted it to take. So this is a pretty important one as well. Shift clicking your commands so that your planes don't suicide into the enemy AA network if possible. And yeah, that brings us to the last tip, and that one is a pretty big one as well that I didn't know about at the beginning either, but that is really, really helpful. As this one has to do with the MLRS, or artillery in general, as you can use the return fire button to give them pre-aim basically and let them aim ahead of time so that you don't Like if you know the enemy will be eventually back here, for example, because you have seen them moving in and out of this area multiple times, but whenever you were aiming on it, uh, just before your missiles were flying off, the enemy was moving out again. You can do so by clicking there, then turn on return fire, either with hotkey or down here, and then the aim will go up, but the unit, after finishing the aim, won't fire. But it has aimed already. So if you then see the enemy units moving in, you just release this button and the unit will fire immediately. So you skip the whole aiming on position part. It can be used with tanks and so on for shooting at specific buildings or something like that as well, but most important it is with rocket artillery, where it really plays a big role in getting you on target, because the aim time of rocket artillery is so high, and yeah, if you can predict the enemy movement, this can pay off really, really big, and can be really helpful, especially in team games, but also in 1v1s or 2v2s. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any other tips like this down below, let me know down below. I would gladly love to hear more of these, and which one I maybe missed, which one you found the most helpful, and if you want to see more videos of this kind. So, yeah, hope to see you all next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye, and have a great day.